Culinary Institute at Holland College and PEI. He's the former executive chef and co-owner of the Mallard Cottage in St. John's. He finished in the top 8 finalists on the Food Network Canada's Top Chef Canada in 2011. And in 2017, he was back for Top Chef All-Stars. So please welcome to the stage, Todd Perrin.
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to St. John's. So someone from St. John's, I'll welcome you as a local. I'm not going to do the dance. I'm dancing in my mind, so we'll live with that. I'm probably going to talk a little bit about a lot of the things that Salim and Hani have already talked about, culture and all that stuff. First, I guess we'll give you a little bit of my background. So I'm a 30-year chef, cook, F&B operator. So I went to culinary school in Holland College, as Rich said. Been working in kitchens for the first half of my career. I worked for people like you guys, hotels and restaurants across the country and in Europe. About 15 years ago, we got in our mind that we were going to build and open our own restaurant. So Mallard Cottage, for those of you that don't know, is down in Quidi Vidi Village, which is just east of here. It's a National Historic Site. The original building is about 250 years old. So not only did we build a restaurant, we restored a National Historic Site, maintained a National Historic Site, and then built a restaurant and ran it there for 10 years. So it was 2 years of construction and 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears. I just recently left there. COVID and a lot of other factors, 10 years of running that restaurant kind of made it time for me to move on to different challenges. And so we're in the process right now of building a new restaurant just down here on Water Street. So I don't know if I'm a sucker for punishment or crazy or what I am, but I'll never give it up. And part of the reason that I guess Salim was so kind to ask me to speak, and thank you to Salim and Westmount for asking me to be here. Part of the reason I think that probably I got asked to be here today is because I am a sucker for punishment. I'm someone who's not going to give up on the hospitality in the food and beverage industry when so many of us have. Coming from the kitchen, cook, back-of-house background, I know what it's like, to work in a difficult environment, in a sweaty environment where you don't get paid very much money and all that stuff. I've lived that my whole career. And I also understand how hard it is to find people to do that, more now than ever. So COVID put a lot of these things into focus. And I think that, we talk about hospitality and food and beverage, particularly, it's, you have to talk pre-COVID, COVID, and post-COVID, because we all know, as in the hotel business, the landscape is completely flipped. And what was difficult before is almost impossible now. But that's not to say that it's not something that, people should get behind and continue to do. And that's why you guys are here, because you continue to do it. We talk about culture, and I think that in some ways it's been beaten to death in lots of ways. But, I look at it a bit differently. Culture is love and passion, really, when you talk about food service and hospitality and talking people's into beds. Like I look at, we're in the care business. People in hotels and restaurants, you're in the care business. What do you do? What are you responsible for your children? Put them in a warm bed and make sure they're fed. That's what we do, right? You can't pay someone to do that. You can't pay someone to do it and care about it. You have to build that level of passion and love and caring. And that's not something you do with money. I think that we get caught up a lot in, granted, I've lived it for the last number of years. One of the first things that happened to our restaurant during COVID is I got a call from my banker who said, "What's your plan?" And I said, well, we got a line of credit. We're going to lean on a bit of that. We'll bob and weave. He said, no. Your line of credit's a demand loan now. I was like, okay. He said, so what else do you think? I said, well, we got a couple of credit cards. I got a little bit of room. We'll bob and weave, we'll juggle. He said, no. Your credit cards are canceled. You need to pay them back, within the next 6 weeks. I was like, okay. So, the next thing he followed up with was, you seem like a good guy. I was like, yeah, okay, well, you're not treating me like I'm a good guy. So the point of that story is just to say that the economics of the industry don't work for people who are in the economics, and I talk from a small operator perspective. Like I said, it's not the size of industry that you guys are involved in. It's not the level of property you guys are involved in. My restaurant, at the peak of our business, we were running 3 businesses. One was Mallard Cottage, one was a place called Water West on the west end of Water Street, and we have an inn, which is across the street from Mallard Cottage, 7-room inn, historic style, brand new buildings. At our peak, we probably had 75 employees, probably $4.5 million revenue, something like that. But maybe the leg up that we had, and the only reason that Mallard Cottage lived for 10 years, with me there, and hopefully it'll live for a lot longer after I'm gone, had never had anything to do with the economics of it. It always had to do with how much we willed it to stay there. And never more so than in the last 3 years. You talk about culture, like, we were like a lot of people. We started in the business and, we were younger. I wasn't that young. We didn't open the restaurant till I was in my 40s. But we were young, we had the idea of what we wanted to do. We wanted to have a laugh. We wanted to have fun. We wanted to deliver something that was as much fun for the people that worked there as for the people who visited there. That was always the idea that we had behind it. I always said to the staff and to the crew, is like, we need to treat people like they're coming to our house for dinner. The only difference is that we land a big bill on their table at the end of the night, right? But it took 7 years and a pandemic for me to finally get the culture inside of that restaurant that I wanted. I think that the pandemic opened up a lot of eyes to me and myself personally about how we wanted to run things. Because when we started, we were like most restaurants, Our servers made minimum wage, our cooks made a little bit better than minimum wage, the servers got all the tips. It was like, it was like a massive juggling act. It was like trying to, so many constituencies inside of a little business. I can only imagine what it's like for you guys in these much larger operations, banquet staff, front of house, back of house, all that kind of stuff. But even for us in our little organization, it was like that. So the decision that we made post-COVID was we democratized the whole thing. And it was a bit easier for me because I never ever treated it as my restaurant. It was always our restaurant, right? It was us. It wasn't me. It was always that way. And I've always tried to empower the people that work there. It's like, it's not my restaurant, it's your restaurant. I ultimately have to crawl in underneath when the pipes freeze, but that's why I'm here, so you don't have to do that. But what we did was, we sat down and looked at the trends, where things were going, what was happening, how hard labor was, and all that kind of stuff. And we made a decision that we started paying everybody in the restaurant the exact same amount of money. Dishwashers, front of house, chefs, everyone got paid the same. We completely democratized the whole thing. Because you want to talk about culture and team, you find out how strong team is inside of a restaurant when your dishwasher doesn't show up for work, right? It's no different than if the chef doesn't show up. Because if the dishwasher doesn't show up, one of the chefs got to go wash the dishes. So trying to organize that in a financial and fiscal way, which was not really how I envisioned it, but it was how it finally hit the ground was, okay, we're all going to get paid the same amount of money. We're all going to share the tips, and we're going to share the upside of this restaurant the same way. And even that took 18 months of that before people finally started to get what we were trying to do. You can't pay, as I said, you can't pay people to care. You can't pay people to, pardon my language, to give a shit. You can't. Like, people aren't motivated by money, especially now, right? You're motivated, like money, I've always looked at the financial aspect of what we do and how we pay people, is so that they don't have to worry about their rent, about their car payment, about, clothes for their kids, about putting their kids in soccer camp or whatever. They need enough money so that they don't need to worry about all that stuff. So when they come to work, they're here to work. They're not thinking about how they're going to pay their rent next week, how they're going to make that car payment, all that kind of stuff. So trying to create that, clear their mind so that they have the capacity and the space to sit down and listen to a guy like me who's going, you know, you don't need to care about this restaurant as much as I do, but you need to understand how much I care about it. You know, that is, I think, the power that building teams and culture really has. And I think too often, you know, we equate success with financial rewards, not only on a corporate level, but individually. And individually, like, and I'm talking down to, you know, the dishwasher, the guy who sweeps the floor, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So it's you know, we found that the best we ever were was when we took that financial equation out of it. You know, now the bank might have a different perspective on that, but you know, like you can't sell something that's not good. So you have to make it good first, and then sell it and go from there. So you know, that was, you know, one of the lessons that we learned. The other thing too, I think that sometimes I feel like gets lost, and you know, I'm sorry if this is a little esoteric, but you know, I'm someone who, when I speak to kids at culinary school, I say, you know, working in a kitchen is not a great job. It can be a good career if you find the right location, the right boss, and all that kind of stuff. But it's an amazing life, right? It's an amazing lifestyle. Hospitality generally is no different than that. You know, we get to do the things and live in a world all the time where people are having a good time. We're trying to create that vibe, trying to create that good time. You know, it's not like going and working in a coal mine. You know, it's not like going and shoveling ditches. You know, we're building the party for people. So, you know, that requires a level of commitment, because anyone, especially, and Heather knows this, like living in St. John's at Christmas time is hard because you got a party to go to every single night. And by the fifth night, you're like, I don't really want to go to this party. But you have to show up with a smile on your face, you know, and have your couple of drinks and shake a few hands and wish everyone well, and off you go. There's no different in our world. You have to do it 365, right? And we all know how hard that can be. But the rewards, I think, are so high. And, you know, and again, not to be too esoteric, the world we live in today, you know, all you got to do is watch the news. The world we live in today, in Canada and internationally, has never been more in need of a strong hospitality culture, taking care of people, looking after people, making sure they got what they need, whether it be in a refugee camp in some part of the world that's being ravaged by war, or whether it be in your hotel in your destination somewhere. You know, people go apples and oranges. It's not really. You know, if there was more care in the world, you know, and we're in the care business, if there's more care in the world, that has to make the world better. And I think that, you know, in a world post-COVID, where a lot of the silos and the financial pressures that we all feel take away from that. You know, they take away from your ability or, you know, your rationale for providing that level of care and comfort. Is a detriment to the world, I think, not only to the industry. You know, I've always had an issue with the word industry coming after hospitality. It's not an industry. It's like saying the parenting industry. You know, like it's not, that's not what we are, right? It's not what it should be. It is what we are. It's not what we should be. And, you know, I know it's for those of you in the room who are, you know, most of your job is crunching numbers and whatnot. You're like, oh, very typical chef. He's up there going, no, money doesn't matter. Like, it just falls out of the trees or whatever. But you know, like I said, the COVID took me from being in the kitchen to, you know, talking to the banker every day, talking to CRA every day, shoveling driveways, clearing, fixing plumbing. Like, there's not one thing that I have not done in the restaurant industry in the last 3 weeks, let alone the last 5 years. Like, you're looking at someone who's like owner-operator to an extreme that very few people are, I would put forward. And unfortunately, it made me do a lot of things that I'm not good at, because I'm much better at fixing plumbing than I am at talking to CRA. But you know, again, you do what you got to do. But I think that, you know, the level of understanding that needs to be out there for everyone, highfalutin corporate types, small operators, and all the people that we deal with, is that what we're selling and what we are providing is a quintessential human need, right? People go stay in hotels for vacation. People go stay in hotels because they're on business, right? We're living through, like much of North America, St. John's is living through an unprecedented homeless issue right now, where we had a tent city in the middle of St. John's. I never thought in all my, my 54 years on this planet, I never thought I'd ever live in a city in St. John's and see that. But we have that, like everywhere in Canada does. And what's one of the first solutions for this problem? Is we put them in a hotel. We find a hotel, we find a property, we find people who are in the industry, and they switch their business and they turn into something else. So, it's not that far removed to say that, that care business from people on the street who have fallen on difficult times, have all kinds of issues that prevent them from being homed in a way that is what most of us consider to be adequate. The go-to for that is a hotel environment. So, I think that's the type of thing that needs to be taken more seriously. And I do think that we need to all consider why we do what we do. Because I gave up on the whole idea of doing what I do for money a long time ago, because it's not worth it. It's not worth doing it for money. Like my buddy says, you want to make money, Todd, go sell cars or, go do something else. He says, what you've gotten yourself into is, something that helps you sleep at night, something that you feel good about, something that you feel like you gave something to someone, and I think that's really, without sounding too airy-fairy about it, I mean, I do think that's the core of what happens. From a practical side too, right? It's like you think about creating culture and creating that passion and that love inside of your organization. This is where it flips the switch and goes into the efficiency and the economics of it. If you can create an environment, if you have an environment and have the right people inside of your organization that they actually care, so they care that the glass on the table has a smudge on it. That's different than knowing that it shouldn't and having to clean it or replace it or whatever. Caring about it means you tell them once to care, and if they get it, they care. Then you don't have to tell them every day 5 times, clean that glass, move that glass. That creates an efficiency inside your organization instantly. To get them thinking independently, to get them thinking about, as I said, inside of my business for many years, you have to care about it as much as I do. My mom never used to get mad at me. She used to be disappointed. Disappointment is a far more powerful motivator than getting angry, right? I think that creating that environment where they don't feel like they're going to be disciplined, they don't feel like, they're not doing their job, they feel like they're letting someone down, right? And that starts with the guest. You're letting the guest down. Then you're letting yourself down. Then you're letting me down. And so like if you can create that and get that inside the heads of the people that work inside your organizations, the shift that makes is profound. And I know this because this is what happened with me. It's why it took us 8 years to get our restaurant to a point where I walked in and went, this is how this restaurant should be. Because I'll be frank, at the beginning of COVID, I sat down with my staff and had many very difficult conversations about where we were, what was happening, how difficult it was for me personally, how difficult it was for our restaurant economically, and ultimately for them economically. And I was lucky that we had a group of people around us who cared enough about it and understood enough about it to take that on. And they took the success of our restaurant and what we do, they took that personally. And then ultimately, it makes my life easier, it makes my job easier, it makes the restaurant more successful. And everybody didn't, as Hani was saying there earlier, you're always going to have 10%, 5%, 12%, whatever. You're not going to make everyone care, but as managers and as motivators and as leaders, your job is to put them where they can do as little damage as possible. right? And you guys have way more spots to put them than I do in that regard. So like that's the thing. You have to know the people that you have, and I know that you do. You guys spend tons of money, tons of time, tons of thought and process involved in performance measurement and all of those things, and understanding the staff you have, understanding the employees you have, and all that kind of stuff. And so you're poised to know who's who and who can do what and how they can do it. And like as a small operator, we obviously didn't do that. I mean, we hired and fired people based on a 2-minute conversation, because you can tell right away if they're gonna work or not. That's not how your guys' organization works. I appreciate that, but I do think that the through line's the same. Salim and I were saying earlier, like small operators, big operators, our challenges are the same. You just have you guys have got a couple extra zeros on the ends, but again, it's a people business. The people are everything. The people that work with you, for you, the people that visit, stay with you, the people that are in this room. The more we appreciate and understand and foster that level of empathy, that level of understanding, that level of accountability, right? Accountability is something that's lost. I think in many, many ways, we all understand, the whole idea of a captain going down with the ship. One thing that we tried to do, inside of our little organization was, if we had a bad guest experience, if we had a bad, something bad happened, we had a negative review or something like that, that's not Tony's fault or Terry's fault or Sherry's fault. That's my fault. Even though I didn't see the guest, I wasn't there, I was, somewhere else or whatever. Like, when my guys knew that I had their back in every single situation, what I can get out of them, like, exponentially changed. And, it took me a long time to figure that out. And I'm not the world's greatest motivator, and I'm not the world's greatest chef, and I'm certainly not the world's greatest businessman. But what I have become over the last number of years inside of my little business is I've become good. I had a meeting with a guy the other day. I mean, in my transition, I've had a few people reach out about, hey, Todd, come to work with our organization, come be our executive chef, come do this or do that. And I had to have this conversation with, fellas who are offering me what most people would consider to be a really good job. But I'm long past the days of working for someone else, unfortunately. I'm too much of an old dog, and new tricks don't come to me that well. But what I have understood about me, and I think that every organization needs to have someone in it, big and small. Like I said, I don't run the numbers really well. I don't necessarily cook the greatest food in the world all the time. But I have become good at, because I had to. I've become good at making people care, right? And what I learned was that's the most powerful thing inside of your business. If you get them to care, you don't need to worry about the food, because the guys care enough. They make good food. If you get them to care, you don't need to tell them 10 times, turn the lights down. This is where we want the light level, because they care about where the light level is. They care about how loud the music is. They care that there's no salt on the steps. They care that we, have the wine on the list that we're supposed to have. They care about it. And I never ever paid them to care, right? I asked them to care, and I paid them because they were, kind enough to show up and put in the time. So, I think that, that's the gist of really, where I come from on things. I think that, I hope that some of that makes sense to you guys. I guess we're going to have our fireside chat. So, like I said, I'm more of a talker than a speaker, but so maybe we'll have a few questions and we can chat a little bit more about it. So thank you for your attention. It's the same standing ovation I got from my banker to start a call.
So Todd is a little showing a lot of humility there, but as a lifelong resident here, I have to show a contrasting opinion. From the moment Mallard Cottage opened, which is in a historic fishing village, and to see the passion that he put into building it, it immediately became and was always listed in the Enroute Magazine Top 10 Restaurants of Canada, opened the year as the best new restaurant in Canada, and as well, if any of you watch the This Hour is 22 Minutes sketch comedy series, there's actually Mark Rich has a character on the show based on Todd. So he has been a cultural icon in this city from the minute Mallard Cottage opened, and all of us look up to him and respect him for what he did, because that restaurant on TripAdvisor was #1 all the while he was at its helm, ahead of Raymond's. So that was an achievement that we all know about, and the most sought after restaurant for all of our guests and tourists that came to town. So he was a little too humble, me knowing the background here, so I wanted to correct that.
Okay. You also mentioned, it was funny, Hani mentioned, teamwork, and you mentioned taking care of your team so that they didn't have to worry about rent and car payment. And it's funny that when you do that, they might not have the investment in your restaurant, but they have the investment in you, because it's natural progression that they know you're taking care of them and they want to take care of you. So it's pretty great. Anyway, we should start this fireside chat if you'd like. It already seems pretty lame because there's no fire. So
I was thinking the same, but
yeah.
I'm like, where's the
So
fire?
welcome.
We can start one really fast.
Welcome to the chat, right? Unless does anybody have any wood or something, we can start it up. Yeah. So Chris Vick is going to moderate this. We've already met Todd and Hani, so if anybody does, that one's Chris on the end, if you didn't know that. So I'm going to back up now and let you do your thing.
Thanks, Rich, and thanks, Hani and Todd, for the great presentation. You guys hear me okay? Am I on there?
I don't think you're on.
I'll talk to. Oh, I got to turn it on. That's right. There's a switch on it. So. There we go. You guys got me now? You'd think I'd know this. My first job in hotels, I was an audiovisual technician, so you'd think I would remember to switch on the microphone. Rich, if it's okay with you, I have my phone here. I will be looking down on it so I can keep us on time, but
Thank you.
I won't. I'll try not to look down and laugh, since that's the sign. Hani and Todd, thank you guys both very much. Great presentations, and I feel honored to be able to sit here and ask a few questions. So I've been taking some notes of things that I wanted to expand on a bit, and then we'll open it up to everyone in the room for more questions. To get the ball rolling, we'll start with some easy ones. So Desert Island, only one food, one drink for the rest of your life. What is it?
Good question. Bottle of Barolo, or cases of Barolo. Food's too hard to pick.
Hani, what do you think?
You know what? Give me anything Lebanese. I'm Lebanese. So give me anything Lebanese with some good red wine as well, yeah.
So Salim's going to cancel the rest of the conference. There's a private jet sitting outside waiting to take you one place in the world. Where would it be?
Seychelles, all the way.
Yeah, I'm going to be super lame. I just like going home. I don't know. I'm good where I am.
It's going to be a short flight.
He's not going to need it. He's saving you some costs there. You're good. Todd is on the team. I'm not.
So you both talked about sort of your vision, or a shared vision. Hani, you referred to it as a mindset, and Todd, the passion. Can you tell us about some strategies that you've used in your careers to get that mindset or that passion at all levels of your organization? What are strategies you've implemented to make that turn into culture, and how do you push that down to everyone from the dishwashers, the servers, your culinary team, the housekeepers? What do you do every day to get that instilled in everyone?
Todd, why don't you start on that?
I mean, it sounds almost, as my father would say, it's almost too stupid to talk about in a way. But for me, I think one of the biggest shifts that we made that made that work better for us was honesty, brutal honesty. And at the beginning of COVID, it was brutal honesty, like being an honest dealer, like speaking plain truth, plain reality to this team about everything that was happening in the restaurant. You know, letting them know when our challenges were very difficult, letting them know when we were doing really well, and you know, having that level of authenticity and that relationship with them. You know, because that transcends an employer-employee relationship, right? You know, it's easier, again, for me in a small operation to be a bit more like that, and plus my personality is like that anyways. But I found that when I started to, you know, not just talking platitudes and not just talk about, oh, you know, we're doing a great job and all that kind of stuff. When I started talking details and honest details about what we were doing and how we were doing it, the response and the level of commitment that I got from them really shot up really fast.
That's great.
I'll share a couple of perspectives, but before I do that, Todd, I just want to really say that I was sitting over there listening to what you're saying. Honestly, as an industry, like, you know, professional has been around for a bit of years, just so inspired by what you're saying. And I think nothing better than hearing it from someone who's been in the trenches, making it happen. And I think a lot of what you've said are like, as what we call pearls of wisdom. So thank you so much for sharing all these perspectives. But going back to culture, I think for me, you know, we spoke a little bit about culture and values and all these great things that we have written on the wall, right? I referenced a bit a shared and a common purpose, right? I found it very important and essential for me to remind the team who we are, right? Yes, we're servers. Yes, we're chefs, we're cooks, we're operators, and so on. But at the end of the day, you know, we're hospitality professionals, right? So you're talking about industry versus hospitality. And what is hospitality, okay? And I always thought it's very important that we speak about that. You know, hospitality is an act of love, right? This is a noble profession. To really be in our business, guys, you've got to be able to love, to take care of people. You know, I have a big issue using the word customer in our hotel. And I'm like, please do not use that word in our hotel. We use the word guest. Why? Because in hospitality, you know, we're providing care. We're not delivering service, right? A server can provide service. A housekeeper can clean the room. But what we're trying to really deliver an experience and a feeling, okay? You never say, I have a customer coming to visit me at home today. Do you ever say that? You never say that. You say, I have a guest coming to visit me home. And once you use that word home and a guest, it just elevates that relationship to a completely different level, right? And it takes away the transactional part of the relationship. And it really brings that level of care and literally, which is really at the core of what we do every single day, right? So it's very important, I think, for me to speak about that with the team. The other part that was very important for me is really connecting the dots, okay? Is really spending time with the housekeeper and making her understand the role that she played in us getting in #1 on TripAdvisor. Like, do you understand? Because our team sometimes do not see that. We're the leaders. We're standing and we're looking at the big picture and we're trying to really, you know, move our players, you know, putting them in the right place and the right position, the right capacity. Sometimes like, hey, do you know the role that you're playing? Do you know the importance of someone coming to the room, being clean, being tidy, finding a small little note from you? And how does that really connect into them making a decision? I want to come back to this hotel again. And then when they're going to make that decision, then obviously we have more people wanting to come back to our hotel. And with more people wanting to come back to our hotel, now we're building demand. And with demand, we're able to really elevate rate. And with elevating the rate, that really builds into the GOP, the GOR, and the flow through that we're trying to achieve. And that allows us to really reinvest in you, in us, so we can get better, right? And I think these two aspects of really getting that equation in place, I found them to really be helpful.
Great, thank you. There's been talk this morning of, you know, the challenge in the dynamic with an organization like Westmont that has a variety of different brands, has a variety of different service level, full service hotels, limited service hotels, economy markets, high destination markets, and Hani, I know you have a luxury background, and Todd, I know a few fine dining chefs, and I feel like they all love hot dogs and pizza as much as fine dining. I'm curious to know what you guys see as the parallels between sort of the fundamentals in hospitality that translate from a luxury environment to a limited service environment, or from a fine dining restaurant to a coffee shop or a quick service restaurant. And I think that would be a great topic as we have leaders here that represent the full spectrum.
I mean, I think, quality doesn't necessarily have a price tag, right? There's all levels of quality. So as you said, you can have a really, 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 really good hot dog, but still just a hot dog, right? So what you're paying at a certain point, you're just paying for bells and whistles, and that experiential aspect of things. That's how you create that elevation. But like I have always said, or tried to, it's, you can have an amazing experience, and Newfoundland Labrador is a great example of it, because it's a very experiential place to come visit. You can have an amazing experience in Newfoundland and Labrador, sitting out on a beach, with waves rolling up on you. It doesn't cost you 5 cents. So it's not about the economic factor. I think where it becomes challenging is that when you're creating luxury brands and you want to deliver that level, there is an inherent cost associated with that, obviously. That someone who's taking you out on a hike in Newfoundland and Labrador, they're not paying for the whales, they're not paying for the icebergs, they're just there. So if you're in downtown Toronto, in the Shangri-La or in a large hotel brand, you have to create something, because if you don't create something there, you're just in the middle of Toronto. And no disrespect to the people from Toronto, but it's like I say, I love visiting Toronto, but I would never live there. So we're lucky here. I think that my little restaurant that we had, and thanks to Heather for the kind words, but we didn't set out to build a restaurant. We didn't set out to build an experience. We didn't set out to create a certain menu or a certain level of anything. We set out to build a place, because people remember places. They don't remember things, right? And so that whole aspect, I think, can be done at every level, every echelon. Newfoundland, you go to the Fogo Island Inn, which is one of the most iconic properties in the world at this point. One of their most favorite things that the guests do there is go to a shed party down at some guy's shed and back behind his house. And they're staying in this gorgeous, massive inn that's spectacular. So it's not about how much you pay. It's not about the gold leaf on the ceiling. It's about where you are and who you're with. That's really what it boils down to.
I think well said, Todd. And I think going back, Chris, to what I was just referencing before, and you have a very good point, and I think I referenced it as well in my presentation, as Westmont. I mean, you've got a plethora of brands that are part of the portfolio, right? And each of the brands have their own values, right? If you speak about Fairmont, by example, it's turning moments into memories. If you look at Marriott, it's all about taking care of the culture is very colleague focused and about creating, pursuing excellence, if I'm not mistaken. If you go to Shangri-La, there's a different set of values. But I do believe collectively, and as Todd was saying, there is a common set of values that connects us as hospitality professionals, okay? And I'll tie it back again to what hospitality is about, okay? It's about genuine care. And the pursuit of excellence can really be achieved at every level of the organization or every level of the industry or the different sectors of the industry, right? You can be excellent delivering service at the Holiday Inn, as you're achieving to really, be excellent in delivering service at the Four Seasons. What changed there, not the hospitality and the experience and the care, because that should not change. It's maybe the physical environment that exists that allows for a certain experience that you cannot deliver at a certain place, right? So if we're able to tie up the team and the organization behind the overarching values of our industry, then we're winning, right? Every basketball team has a certain set of values, right? You go to every organization and they have their values on the wall. Communication and teamwork and hard work, and you go there, sincerity, and you go there, and that's totally fine. But the teams that win are in it to win it. We are a winning team. These are our values, but we're a winning team, period. And that's what I think is really that secret sauce, which really comes back to culture, which really come back to what Chef Todd was talking about, really getting to that point of having your team care. I was just speaking with Peter. Peter, we're just speaking a bit about Four Seasons, right? Peter worked for Four Seasons, I think in Ottawa, if I'm not mistaken. And he was just telling me about the moment where they had to deal with a strike. And out of nowhere, Isidore Sharp cuts a vacation that he was in, or he was away from the country or so on, takes his private jet, flies to Ottawa, and he's asking Peter or the manager in there, what can I do? And suddenly he is in the dish pit, okay? That's leadership by example. That is setting the tone. That is showing someone, I care about this place, maybe a little bit more than you, but let's say equally to you. And if you see me doing that, you're gonna try to emulate that, and I think exactly what you just spoke about right now, Chef, what you created in your restaurant. I mean, seeing that sincerity and true level of care, like, it's contagious, right? So.
Great. You've both spoken a lot about the importance of the team, and I like that you both shared a perspective of us and we over the individual. So I'm curious to know what you look for when hiring new team members.
I mean, for me, it's always been, I don't ever hire someone for skill level. I always hire someone for their attitude. And I think that in the back of house and the kitchen perspective these days, it's even more so than ever. Like when I started in cooking, we all did everything the same. It was regimented. It was intentionally so. The brigade system, we all wore tall hats. Bechamel was bechamel. Hollandaise was hollandaise. All that kind of stuff. So in the course of my almost 30-year career, chefs like me and the way that now chefs got scraggly beards and stocking caps and all that kind of stuff, and we make the food that we want to make. So I can take something that was made the same for 200 years and make it different now, because now we're all individuals, right? So like hiring a kid at culinary school just because he knows how to make hollandaise doesn't make any sense anymore, because when he goes to my restaurant, he's going to make it this way. When he goes to this restaurant, he's going to make it a different way. So you just want someone who is open, has an attitude of willingness to learn, and a passion and a commitment. Like that's everything, and we'll teach them the rest. But again, come from the food and beverage side down to the food side, that's the culture of that part of our business. Like training and teaching is really mostly what chefs do, good ones anyway. They spend more of their time teaching than they do cooking. Like that's what it's all about. So I think that's, for me, it's always been that. Like I said, skill's relative, right? I think that is, there's only so good you can make hollandaise sauce. There's only so good you can cook a medium rare steak. What you can really accelerate is that passion, care, and commitment, and the willingness to do what's required to get through the end of the day. And just hiring a kid because he knows how to keep track of a bunch of bills on a chip rail, that's not a recipe for success.
I can't agree with you more, Chef. And I think going back to Four Seasons, you just mentioned it right now. The saying was, we hire for attitude, we train for skills, because skills are trainable. And I think the program that you have within Westmont that allows you to really, or allows your team members to really travel. I mean, this is an asset, and I think you really need to really present it and look at it that way, right? Because only few organizations will allow you or have the opportunity to fly you from here to there to X to Y and Z, where you can learn, get more exposures, get more experience and so on, and that makes you a better leader. But going back to that starting point is that, do you have that positive attitude? Like, am I seeing it in you? And of course, there's a way of really structuring the interview so you're able to really identify those skills. But at the end of the day, it's like, what are you about? Are you here to really, do you understand our vision? And do I get the impression from you that you're committed to excellence and you've got that mindset of growth and wanting to really be part of that culture and help us to really move forward? Everything else will fall in place. Everything else will fall. Now, of course, every position would have specific skills, right? In marketing and communication, you need someone who's great in that. In cooking, you need someone who had that experience, because it's so difficult to really also, start from the scratch, right? You look at those specific skills where they apply, but in general, it's that mindset there.
There's a lot of talk this morning as well about treating guests as members of your family, as you would treat your family. And I'm curious how in your careers you've been able to figure out how to really personalize service for your guests.
I mean, for us, it took me a while to come around to this. Like, it wasn't always the way that I thought, but because I think that as a chef, as a cook, especially as a young cooks and young chefs, and those of you who have them in your organizations know, young cooks and young chefs are dying to show you everything that they know every time they plate a plate of food. They want to put every sauce, every technique, everything they ever did, they want to put it on one plate. When you get older, you realize that less is more and all that kind of stuff. So I think that when we started, we had a vision of, we're going to do what we're going to do, and if the customer likes it, great, and if they don't, well, it's their problem. But that evolved over time, and especially kind of COVID and post-COVID. I mean, the customer, the restaurant customer particularly, I'm sure at a hotel too, they've never been more discerning. They've never been more concerned about value. They've never been more concerned about quality. And unfortunately for us, as cooks and on the F&B side, not everybody runs a hotel or has people coming and staying in their bedrooms, but everybody cooks. So everybody thinks that they know how to do it better than you. So then when you start charging them for it, then all of a sudden they really got a reason to criticize. But I think for us it just became, because I think COVID changed the perspective of the customer is always right. Because to be frank, I think a lot of people took that, they went to hell with that. People coming in and critiquing and having difficulty and putting the place up because X, Y, or Z. And I think there was a lot of pushback on the restaurant side particularly of saying, no, you don't know better than us. I get you're the customer and I get you're paying the bill, but you don't get to criticize everything about this place. If we do something bad, then we'll get behind that and fix that. But you can't come in and say, you don't like the music. Well, there's 75 people here, like, what music do you want me to play? So like it gets to that level. But I also think that, trying to be more, swing the pendulum back a little bit to trying to be more focused on the customer as opposed to just being Mallard Cottage because this is the way Mallard Cottage was going to be, or this is the way Todd Perrin's restaurant was going to be, was something that we had to learn. But that it does open you up to a problem because, my rationale for it at the beginning was if I please myself, I've been around a long time, I have an understanding of what going to a restaurant, going to a hotel is like. If I please myself, I should please the majority of people. Because trying to please 75 people in a dining room, you might as well blow your brains out because you can't do it. Right? Because you got 75 opinions, you got 75 ideas of what good is, what bad is, all that kind of stuff. But the reality of it is, unfortunately, which is what makes the business difficult, is that you got to try to drill down to what does table 7 want? What does table 8 want? What does table 12 want? Sure. And in the really good quality, high-end luxury locations, some of the fanciest restaurants in the world, they have the resources and things to be able to do that. They track their customers. They understand who everyone is. They know what kind of glass that individual likes. He doesn't like the rosé glass. Give him the tumbler. He likes to drink it Spanish style. Whatever. You know, like, so that becomes a resource issue at a certain point. But, you know, there's no substitute for giving a shit. So if most customers feel like their server, their chef, their cook, their host, whoever cares, then that smooths over a lot
That is right.
of bumps, right?
That is
So
right.
like that I think, you know, that's a long-winded way to go back to say the same thing I've been saying all morning, but.
Yeah. No, but I mean, you Todd, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, the secret sauce as it is that genuine level of care, guys, right? So, like, you're talking about details and like it starts with caring. And it, again, the easiest way, guys, for us to really marshal and align our teams is always bringing them back to the essence of what we're trying to do. If we're in the care business, right, in hospitality, true hospitality, genuine care, you take interest. When you have a guest in your house, right, again, not a customer, a guest, hey, how are you? What's going on? Tell me. How's the family? Oh, whatever. It's great. And sometimes you're taking notes. At home, you don't take written notes, you take mental notes, right? Oh my God, yeah, his daughter had a baby. What did you name? Where's she? What school? That's a level of care and interest, okay? So when you try to extrapolate the mindset into business, Chris, it's like the mindset is already there. Now you have, Yanis, we're talking a little bit before, how can we make things happen? Then structure comes in, okay? So recognition, right, is one of the cornerstone of elevated service. It's like, why do I go to a place and I pay $500 for a room versus a $250 for a room? Now, mind you, the asset that we spoke about has a price to it, right? But many times, people go to places that are run down or they're average at best, but they're willing to pay the premium price. And I'm not saying only because of recognition, but recognition, guys, is a cornerstone of an elevated service experience. And that starts with caring, knowing you, who you are, your name, et cetera, but then also knowing what you like, okay? Knowing all these details. And there are ways of doing it, and it's not very expensive and doesn't have to be very expensive, okay? There's, by example, in a restaurant, chef, you just mentioned right now, there's open table. There's a profile there. So if Salim tells me, oh, I like my steak, okay? How powerful it is when Salim comes to the restaurant again. Oh, sir, I know that you like your steak medium rare. Would you like me to really order the same for you today? I mean, you know how powerful that is, okay? You're talking about, you know, details. Did you notice the notebook that you have on your tables right now? It has your name on it. I mean, that's details there, okay? And you need to really, operationally, guys, we need to understand, all what we talk about is great. It boils down to consistency, okay? Everyone wants to be a certain brand and aspire to be that certain brand. And the challenge is not that they don't know how to do it, or that they lack the passion, or they lack the motivation. It's just sometimes, how are you able to really deliver a consistent experience across you know, multiple locations across the world? I mean, you know, there's a reason why Four Seasons is Four Seasons. We're just speaking about it before. Four Seasons, ladies and gentlemen, do not own one single asset. If I'm not mistaken today, don't quote me on that, they're a $13 billion company, okay? I think they're at 120 hotels, just make the math. That value is the know-how. The know-how is us in the room. It's the leaders in the room. It's the people and how to translate and how to manage consistency. In social media at one time, there was this kind of like small little funny clip circulating. It's like, what business is McDonald's in? And I think probably, yes, they are in the burger business, but honestly, for me, it's the consistency business. I'm traveling all over the world, and sometimes I don't want to risk what I'm eating. But I know if I go to a McDonald's, I'm getting that burger, that taste, that topping, done deal, and I'm willing to pay the price for it, right? So this is where the technical part and our expertise come into play, right? So recognition, there are tools to really do that. So you take notes, there are profiles, there are Opera, there's open tables, there are all this stuff. We had something called Show Me You Know Me in one of my hotel brands. It's a small little sheet that literally is titled Show Me You Know Me, literally, okay? Is who I am. So if I was a repeat guest, and we did it for a lot of our repeat guests, Chris is coming back, that's what he likes, this is his room, and so on. And this is how you can really build on that attention to details and customization, okay? I hope that covered that. But we'll answer more questions. I think we should stop talking and answer questions.
Yes, we've got a few minutes left.
Okay, good.
I've got a couple more questions, but I want to open it up to the room because I'm sure there's lots from the audience. And Rich Taylor has the microphone. So probably a question over here to make him walk a lot.
Oh, I thought you're going to really have an act or sing or whatever, or dance or. Okay, guys, questions, please. Okay, let's do it.
Grant's always got a question.
I always got questions.
That's good.
I guess my question is for you, Todd. When you decide that it's time to change a menu, aside from going out and tasting new food, what do you look for inspiration?
The easy answer is, seasonality and all of those types of things. But, the reality of living here in Newfoundland and Labrador and everywhere now with COVID and all that kind of stuff is what you can get, and what's available, what you can get from the local wholesaler or supplier or farmer. Customer taste obviously is a factor. Mallard, when we started Mallard, it was started like many, many restaurants of its day. It's like I said, 10, 12 years ago now. Seasonal, local, organic where possible, all of those types of things. And when we came out of the gate like that, everybody was like, well, you're part of that trend that's going on in Canada, in North America. Which actually wasn't the reason we did it. The reason we did it is because I'm from here. I spend a lot of time working here. I spend a lot of time working in Europe and on the mainland as well. But I know that in Newfoundland and Labrador, there's no point in writing the menu until you got the food in the building. Because when you write the menu and you go shop, you may or may not be able to get it. And that's down to carrots. Like, we live on an island in the North Atlantic, and sometimes everything is not available. There was kind of theoretical and philosophical reasons why we did it that way, but essentially it's practical. And especially now, we look for what's good, what's quality, what's available, and what's economic, because the cost of food right now makes it very difficult to make money selling food. It goes to what we've all been talking about. You charge for experience, you can't charge for food. The only fella making money selling food in Canada right now is Galen Weston. The rest of us are trying to sell something else. Like that, and it's trite, but it's not that far off. Like, you can't charge enough. If you put regular restaurant margins on what food costs now, you can't put those prices on the menu. Like it's not just for a plate of food. So I'm not the best example of it because we've been very much a seat of our pants restaurant forever. Like, we cook what we feel like. We open the fridge and make make good food. Like, that's really our motivation, always has been. I've always said the fridge is just a bunch of mise en place. Let's take it out and turn it into something. It was part of the democracy of our kitchens. Always been like that. It's like I give the boys the tools that they need to do what we're trying to do, and that philosophy and that culture goes into just putting good food on the plate. But it's more tricky now than it's ever been, for sure, because you make a mistake on your menu. It's the difference between making money and losing money on any given day. Like, you have one mistake, one menu item can cost you your shirt, that's a tightrope to walk these days.
True. Food and beverage, guys, margins are very tight. That's for sure.
So
I'm nervous with this because you touched earlier on, like, you know, everybody wants to be a chef when they come into your restaurant. So here's Salim.
Oh, we heard about that, by the way, yeah.
I
We
don't
need
know
a
about that.
demonstration, huh, Rich?
Sure. So, question for both of you. You look at hotel side of things, right? For years, hotels have especially looked at restaurant as an amenity. If you have to take that and give advice to GMs who run food and beverage operations, what would that be? How do you take that amenity and make it into operations which drive culture, which drive service, which drives availability for the guests to be in there, right? Creates an environment within the hotel, right, box. We talked about Sheraton. It was a place where people wanted to hang out in the restaurant, and we've lost that. So if you had to give advice, what would that be?
You know, Salim, you hire a Todd. That's what you do.
Yeah. Give me a chance to run this next one into the ground before I come in.
Not true, chef, not true.
Oh, I would say, you know, you and I talked about it when we met a number of months ago, Salim. Like, I think that one of the things you battle in terms of hotel restaurants is that how the perception in the world has changed about hotel restaurants. Hotel restaurants used to be the gold standard of restaurants. The greatest restaurants in the history of food, many of them started as part of a hotel organization. And the world has changed, and I don't know if the hoteliers dropped the ball or if the rise of independent restaurants became stronger. But hotel restaurants now, like, people turn their nose up at a hotel restaurant just by saying, oh, it's in the hotel. They've never been there, they don't know anything about it, but because it's in a hotel, they're automatically, oh, well, you know. So I think that what has happened is that, unfortunately, that has bled into the culture inside of hotel restaurants. So you don't get very many innovative, motivated, passionate chefs who want to go work in a hotel. That becomes, you know, as I said, you know, job, career, life. Like, working in a hotel is a good career, but that does not translate into passion in most hotel restaurants. And I think it's part societal. I think it's part of the way that the hotel industry has treated their restaurants and treated the people that work in those restaurants. I think there's a lot of culpability in terms of why it's become like that. But you're right. I mean, the restaurant, the Cabot Club that used to be here, I mean, it used to be the spot to go in St. John's. You know, and the best chefs in the city worked here. It's not true anymore. I mean, great chefs here, don't get me wrong, but that's not, the kids coming out of culinary school now are not going, I can't wait to go work at the Four Seasons. I can't wait to go work at the Sheraton. Like, that's not the mindset, you know. So it's an uphill battle there for sure. You know, and I think that, frankly, I mean, and Hani would have a better perspective on this than me, and all you guys would, but, you know, I think hotels have rested on the laurel that they're making the money on the rooms. So, like, they just need that to be okay.
True.
And not really upset anybody.
An amenity.
They're not trying to make it good. They're trying to make it okay. So that's not a recipe for, like, ascending to the heights. You know, we're aiming for mediocre. So that's what you get when you aim for mediocre for most times, you know, so.
That is very true. Allow me to ask this question, Yanis. I'll answer this because this is a very critical question, and all of us in the room needs to understand. If you need to optimize your asset, gentlemen, every single revenue center need to be optimized. Like, if you're doing the best job on the room side, and F&B is not doing great or not the best, that's not optimization. Right? So remember that thing, and the fact that we in this room as leaders and the perspective we need to have about our different business units, okay? Now, allow me to ask this question. How many of us in the rooms here are food and beverage operators? Like, you know, do you have any directors of food and beverage here? Do you have chefs here? Or are we all general managers? And do you have anyone in food and beverage? Okay, 2 hands over there, love it. You'll be at the front here. Okay, so I think what Chef Todd said, I think covers a lot of the things, Salim. But for the longest time, I think hotels looked at food and beverage operations as an amenity. I'm selling rooms, I make my money there, why do you have to worry, whatever, and that transcended or led to that level of mediocrity that existed. Because you know what? All I needed to do is to open this, you serve me breakfast, you serve lunch, as long as I'm covered there, we're good and we're making the money on the hotel. Okay, and we had the rise of the, I think there's been a huge shift in the food culture in general, Chef. As you know, help was TV and the Food Network and what's going on, and us being more interested to really eat healthy food, more interesting food, more tasteful food, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, what hotels have realized at a certain page, that they are, at certain times, that they are behind the 8 balls. And what they realize is that for us to really turn our amenities into revenue centers, let's really bring the people who really know it best. And this is where that collaboration between hotel brands and independent entrepreneur chefs really started to come about, and you realize that there was a shift and an uplift in the way a hotel or an asset starting to operate. Okay, so I think that optimization needs to start with a mindset that until I have every single business unit really optimized, I'm not going to get there. And if I don't know how to really do it, how could I get the help of someone who can help me bring it to the next level? And we need to really understand, ladies and gentlemen, is that for us to optimize, entrepreneurship, it's at the foundation of results. Once the job becomes a job, career, paycheck, that's not entrepreneurship. A restaurant manager that is really empowered is someone who's really thinking about the restaurant. And what we fall into as operators, as hoteliers, as general managers, hey, I need you to open from 8 to 11. I need you to serve this. No, that group would not like this. That is totally fine. But this is where the balancing act comes in, okay? Because we're the ultimate entrepreneurs. Like, we're the responsible ones for the business. And we need to understand that for that business unit to really be optimized, I needed to action and function as almost an entrepreneurial, independent business entity within my hotel, right? And you need the restaurant manager and you need your chef to be thinking that way, right? I just had a conversation a week ago where I'll refer right now to Friday Harbor, right? So we're setting up right now as we speak a skating experience in the middle of the piazza. And if you didn't visit Friday Harbor, it'll be a pleasure to welcome you all one day. Please reach out to me, and it'll be an honor to really welcome you there and to show you around. So, it's a slower period of the year, so we have a skating experience in the middle of the piazza, et cetera, et cetera. We're gonna be serving food and beverage with it. We've got this chili, soup and tomato soup, and we're doing a couple of cheese sandwiches and so on. And we're doing the tasting with the chef. And the chef is like, so how much are we gonna sell this, guys? Oh, we're gonna sell the soup at $19. Chef, how are we gonna sell the soup at $19? Like, do you think if I have 3 kids and I'm coming with them, I'm gonna really spend $75 only on 3 soup for my kids? Like, I'm not gonna do it. Yeah, honey, you're right. But finance told me I need to have a food cost of X. I'm like, okay, guys, let's take a deep breath. Let's really think of the guest, the experience, what we're trying to achieve, and really work out the numbers as well. So it's a balancing act, because if you let one function to really overtake an experience, you're gonna end up somewhere. And then also at the same time, if you let chef run with what they wanna do, you're not probably end up achieving the overall goals of the organization, because the restaurant in a hotel or in a conference center and so on has to fulfill a certain function, okay? You don't want them to really be open from 7 a.m. till midnight because you want them to, right? Because that's labor. But then also you don't want them to open for lunch and close for breakfast because that's essential for you. So it's really a balancing act between optimizing that and what are the mindset and the parameters you need to have in place so that function. And it's a very balancing act, guys. And I tell you one thing, for all of you and for all of us as operators, okay? I experienced the restaurant as an amenity run by the hotel. And I experienced the restaurant working with a third-party operator. Like at the Hazelton Hotel, we had Chef Mike Ewan. At the Four Seasons, we had Chef Daniel Boulou. At the Four Seasons in Washington, D.C., we had Michael Mina, right? And there are different formats of doing that, right? So you can run it yourself. You can have it fully run by a third party, or you can have kind of collaboration between the two. So Café Boulou at the Four Seasons, it was all Four Seasons staff, yet it was the brand of Daniel Boulou and his management oversight. Now, what we need to be paying attention to is that each of these structures will bring its own challenges, right? Sometimes it's great to really ask Chef X, Y, and Z to come and run your operation. But what you need to realize as an overall leader of that organization, you're going to really have a lot of challenges. Probably, by the way, that could be the best course to really take, maybe to invite Chef Todd to really open. But what you're going to realize is that right now, you're dealing with two conflicting cultures. Very rarely that they align. You run your operation, or your hotel, or your brand runs the operation one way, and Chef Todd or Chef X and Chef whoever that is, they have their own culture. And that causes a lot of challenges, okay? So you have to really look at all these stuff. But one thing I want to tell you guys about food and beverage, right? That's the soul of your hotel, okay?
I don't disagree with that.
You've got to understand this, okay? At one time, 20 years ago, whatever you did in your room carried the day, right? Carry the day. If you had like a great quality product, the restaurant was an amenity, you did your rate there, done deal, okay? That's not what it is, especially in the rise of food culture and everything that comes with it. So food and beverage plays a critical role. We're talking about asset positioning and uplifting the positioning of your asset. Food and beverage plays a critical role in that, right? Because why? Because this is where everyone gets together. This is where you connect with the community. Chef Todd was just talking about, sorry, which restaurant and hotel you were talking about, Chef? Like that used to be the place where everyone.
Well, here at Cabot Club in this hotel.
Okay, so you know that's if you have the community coming to your restaurant, and you are the living room, that's 50% of your positioning optimizations. Okay, so it's very important that the food and beverage outlets are optimized. Okay, and you know, they will help you immensely in building that culture. I'm sorry I went a little bit too much into this, because it's very, very important that we understand the aspect that the chef and food and beverage and that experience plays into that asset optimization. Okay, guys, because that's half the secret there that people do not understand a lot. Okay, sorry, I don't know if we went over time.
Like we're just running a little bit over, but I knew that the last question would be like we're about to hear
It's
the power
Salim.
of a good question. So like this one opened a can
It's
of
Salim.
worms.
I mean, Salim's questions are.
I knew as soon as he put his hand up, I was
Don't
we're
blame me
running
and
over
Todd
here.
for that.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So Todd Perrin, Hani Roustom, and Chris Vick, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate
Thanks,
it.
sir. That was fantastic.
Thanks for your
Todd,
presentation.
pleasure, man. Pleasure.
Absolutely.